you saw a lot of clamping down in terms of content. Because with each administration, they get to nominate the people that they want to sit on the FCC. And the FCC, although it's not chartered as a censorship organization or operation, they do censor either directly or by inference or by threatening people's licenses, and so certain things just don't go on the air. And then during the Reagan administration, this was reinforced by this Meese Commission witch hunt that traveled the country for over a year, trying to find a link between pornography and violence. And at the end of this time, they could not find any, but they never published that finding. But they went around terrorizing people. It was just like, it was kind of like a sexual McCarthy hearing that moved from town to town. And it had certain overtones of fundamentalist Christian organizations. They were always there to support it when it came to town, to put on its little show. And one of their star witnesses was Linda Lovelace, the girl from Deep Throat who had become a born-again Christian and was there testifying about the horrors of pornography. And you know, that was like she was a star draw for when the thing came to town. They weren't really coming there to see Ed Meese, they were coming to see Linda.
Do you think, like, was the political conservatism sort of that was happening on television reflecting the conservatism of the time that was right across the whole culture? Or was television always a sort of a very easy target for politicians?
Well, I think that there's a lot of cooperation in American broadcasting between conservative regimes and the people who own the broadcast machinery, and all the rest of the news machinery too.
So,
because you know what Ronald Reagan would be doing every year on January the 1st? It would be a special party at that Annenberg estate in Palm Springs. They'd get together and plan what they were going to do with the media for the following year.
So, you know, is broadcast television, say now, does it reflect contemporary America, or is only one sort of strata of it, the sort of establishment strata?
I think that it's the closest you would get to something really reflecting actual behavior and actual attitudes is what happens on Fox on Thursday night. I mean, whether you like it or not, Fox has shows which have a little bit more of a contemporary, realistic feel than what's on the other channels.
And you know, Fox is the sort of as the pirate out the side there.
Well, the big boys didn't like Fox. They didn't welcome the existence of a so-called fourth network. It's not really a network yet, but they didn't want any competition.
One example of a Fox show is Married with Children, which
it's a very successful show. So The Simpsons, Living Color, and the other thing that is very successful is that Beverly Hills 91012 or whatever it is.
And is it, so, you know, the audiences that American television gets, does it go for a broad audience right across the spectrum, or does it go for a more, you know, different segments like you get the Beverly Hills show? That's obviously aimed for kids. Is that accessible to all kids, or is it mainly sort of white middle class upper kids? How do they sort of?
They don't tell me what goes on in the story meetings, but I would imagine that it's mostly for the white kids.
So is it sort of?
But on the other hand, my kids watch Living Color. I watch Living Color. I think it's a funny show.
What's, say, a show like Married with Children, what does middle America think of a show like that? You know, is it threatening, or is it sort of
threatening to them? No, I think they like it. I think they look at the Bundy character in there and go, yeah, I know a few Bundys myself. But the interesting thing about Bundy-like characters in all sitcoms, the universal rule of all sitcoms is fathers are weak, fathers are bad, mothers are wise. Now, this has been with us since the 50s. And this has sent a very bad psychological message to the entire society. It has made fatherhood almost a criminal activity. And a lot of people would be dissuaded from ever becoming a dad based on the images that are presented to the public from American television shows. And this goes all over the world. And you know what? American dads lived up to the image. They eventually became just as stupid and ineffectual as... there's plenty of real Bundys out there. That's the reason why that show resonates. But there are real Bundys out there because there were many predecessors to the Bundy character.
So you think it was very much it's life following art, not art capturing the reality of the American family?
I think that it's a loop. It seems to me that in the United States, the family has been replaced by the squadron. If you look at MTV and the way the dances are set up, young people group together in squadrons. You know, especially the Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation video. It's squadronism. If you live in a place where you happen to be in a socially retarded area and they don't have gangs there yet, well, you know, you've got something that is like a little squad of guys. They have terms like me and my crew. You know, nobody's got a family because who wants to hang out with a dad? Dads are like Bundys. And if the dad does exist, the person who actually caused the child to appear someplace, well, he didn't think it was very much fun, so he left this little creature with the mother, and he went out to do something more interesting, and so therefore the squadron. And MTV is showing us the new family unit. Then again, if you live in a neighborhood where they don't have gangs, your other options are you belong to the football team, which is another kind of a gang, or you belong to some other thing which is not a family.
And do you think this is different than, hasn't always happened with with baseball teams or with social clubs, or just this thing it's coming to a younger age group now? How does the MTV thing focus? Does it just make it much more tighter pressure on the kids to actually...
I don't think MTV puts pressure on them to abandon the family. I just don't think that there are any families left. I mean, that's obviously an exaggeration, but the family is an endangered species in this country. And the idea of how a family ought to work or a reason for it to even exist, to the point now where the United States government is talking about governmental programs almost to mandate family existence. Is that pathetic or what? And then they talk about family-oriented shows where people would kind of wish there was such a thing as a family, because you can sell a lot of interesting things to a family as a unit. Families that are units are interesting, have interesting consumer possibilities. I think there's a nostalgia for families as an institution, but they're rapidly fading away. And what MTV is doing is just portraying the destruction, not causing the destruction. But it's certainly, the way I look at it, I see evidence in the staging of those videos that it's all about wild kids in the street roaming in packs, huddling together for protection against the hostile outside world. That's the subtext of a lot of it.
And then along comes the family network. Where does that fit in? What sort of gaps is that trying to fill in?
Well, I think that the whole idea of the family network is just a front for the religious broadcasting. They put on shows like The Flying Nun and The Talking Horse and the stupid shit like that. And then when you're not looking, here comes Pat Robertson with yet another telethon telling people to pray to save America from homosexuals. And that's the family channel.
So you think as the family disintegrating, you're getting these other sort of organizations trying to sort of cash in,
replace the family. You have a group of people who would cash in. They are gang leaders. Plenty of people to work in the gang and carry the drugs and do the business because somebody wants to belong to that. Then you've got religious opportunists who will feed upon this desperation that's out there in the countryside right now. If you can't have a real family, come to our church and we will provide family type things for you, and at a modest charge, of course. All it takes is all of your money and a piece of your mind, or maybe all of your mind and a piece of your money, but it's going to cost you.
I was in the bank today. There's signs that, you know, welcome from, you know, Christmas greetings from our family to your family.
Mm-hmm.
The restaurants talk about, you know, join the McDonald's family.
Exactly. The family has become a nostalgia word. Tree will be like that one day.
Family tree.
Mm-hmm.
Because America's built on the family. That's the whole, you know, middle America. It's mum, apple pie, the family, all those sort of values. That's part of the mythology. And
Well, it may exist in middle America. There may be pockets of resistance, but not in this town.
What about sort of the side of American television, which we see also the antiseptic, the Cosby shows, where you have these smiling.
What I want to know is, this show has been rated so highly for eternity, and I don't know anybody who ever watched it. I mean, somebody must have, but I can't imagine that the huge numbers that the advertisers were accepting as reality and therefore paying large dollars to put minutes on that program, I can't really see that those numbers were ever based on reality.
Do you think those sort of shows capture are they sort of like a mythology? Because they have these happy families and every, you know, Ray Charles comes for dinner and things like that. Do you think that's part of a mythology rather than a reality, is it?
I think that it's part of a maintenance program, a government-approved, not sponsored, but certainly approved status quo maintenance program.
What about, you know, we don't see, but you might know, what the sort of shows that are made but never get onto air? You know, there must be things that have been...
Look at these shelves.
Because this television have to be seen as a thing that goes to everybody. That's the problem with the broadcast medium.
Well, the problem with that concept is that the image of the everybody that they plan for is such a work of fiction. And I can't imagine how they concocted this imaginary everybody. Some very sick people dreamed up this particular everybody because we could work backwards from the programming and deduce what the mentality of this imaginary everybody is like. And he would be one sick bastard, a total basket case, incapable of being a functional member of any society. You just look at the programming and, you know, deduce backwards from the images that you see on the air. Who did they plan this for? And what could that denizen be?
So, I suppose then looking at, say, narrowcasting, then when the cable came along, was narrowcasting and the cable thing seen as a way to sort of get to all those different sort of audiences rather than this one big, large audience? Was that the sort of reason the cable thing happened? Because...
No, I think cable basically was constructed not so they could narrowcast, but so that they could have a specialized dumping ground for motion picture product, because that's really the bulk of cable business. Recycled Hollywood product. And that's what the home video business has turned into. I mean, you think what that originally started out, you could get any kind of programming on tape. It didn't have to be a movie. There were all kinds of documentaries and everything. But the documentary makers and the companies that distribute the documentaries have virtually been squeezed out of the business, because the majors go to the video retailers and say, "If you want the product, we don't want you to stock this stuff. We want more space on the shelf for Terminator 2. And just look at the numbers of the people just a few years ago who were doing non-theatrical home video programming. It's maybe 10 times what is left today. They've all been driven out.
Only Jane Fonda's workouts left on the shelves.
Yeah.
So, well, with cable, but now you're starting to see the narrow casting of, like, the religious programs, or you know, there's sports and there's, you know, could you talk about that? How it sort of
how it gets on the air?
How it's segmenting up, how the marketplace is segmenting, how the culture is sort of only looking at things that it believes in. You know, if you're a sports fan, you can only just watch sports and you don't have to expose yourself to anything else.
Well, I think that if you're a sports fan, that is what you want. That's what will make you happy, and entertainment is supposed to be good for you. And so if you want sports, then go for it. I don't watch it. But for the people who like it, they should have as much as they want. And the same thing for religion. You should have just as much religion as you want. Music, have that. But there are other things that you ought to be able to have access to, and they're not there.
What sort of things?
Well, the only good science shows that you get to see are on PBS. And they're few and far between. And these are watered down by sort of nature shows where look at the bunny, or here comes the wolf, or look, there goes the tiger, and here comes the gazelle. There's a lot of those filler type pseudo nature shows that are on several different channels. There's some really good ones, you know, where you see intimate behavior of ants and stuff. There's always exceptions, but I think that given the educational needs of this country in particular, that more of that in-depth scientific programming of an entertaining nature ought to be in more places rather than just in a specialized place.
So to get a program like that, of course, it would have to be, you'd have to nearly be subversive, because a sports fan wouldn't want to watch any of that. But if you wanted to get something.
But the sports fans got ESPN, so let them watch it. But I mean, for people who might want to see something else, or could be induced to be interested in something else, it should be available for them.
So do you consider yourself well serviced with the service that the broadcast and the cable company gives you? You know.
But I don't think that it's worth the money I spend on it. And the biggest waste of money is the satellite dish, because if you get the dish, you have access to all kinds of programming that's in the sky. But all the stuff that you would normally get on cable, which are pay services, you still have to pay for them from the satellite. It's all scrambled. And the only thing you get for free from a satellite is masses of very, very badly produced religious programming, home shopping networks, old movies. We can pick up sporting events from the Caribbean for some reason off of our dish. Just odd stuff, but you don't, unless you're going to pay, you don't get CNN or headline news or HBO or any of the other kind of stuff. And so to think that the future lies in the dish and you'll just set the dish up and the sky is yours, it's not. And the only advantage to the dish reception is it seems to have a better picture quality once you've unscrambled it and paid the money and looked at it. The downside is it takes far more time to switch between channels, because you have to tilt the dish and aim the dish and all this stuff. And so cable is a mind-numbing convenience here. We have maybe 50 channels. I've never stopped to count them, a lot. And you can just zip through them and find something that'll occupy your mind for a while.
As a cable watcher, do you have the 3 or 4 channels that you always watch and you never access at all the other 46 or 47, or do you just graze across them?
Well, the ones that are set up on my instant, the primary buttons on my clicker are C-SPAN 1 and C-SPAN 2, CNN, and headline news.
So you're a real information junkie.
Yeah, I think that that's probably the most useful thing, useful service that cable can provide in this country, is having an inside look at the government, which is what C-SPAN gives you. And then the rest of the channels, just whiz right through. And if you want a movie, I've got 4 different channels that'll show me movies. We've got MTV. We receive all the sports stuff, but I took it off of the menu. I don't even want to waste my time looking at guys jumping around in shorts, throwing balls, at the things. And
let's talk about then MTV, because that's just sort of having a major impact internationally. What's happening is a lot of, like in Germany, the local music shows are all collapsing. So the local music isn't getting exposure, because the kids are all just watching this highly packaged clips that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinions on the MTV? Because also, of course, it is giving access and getting music, and the visual side of music, which has always been neglected out there, is putting.
Well, I don't think that it's so bad that the visual side of music has been neglected. The overcompensation that you find on MTV right now is they've gone so much in favor of the visual that the music has been neglected. Basically, it's models lip syncing to freeze-dried drum tracks and tambourines and hand claps and mumbling. And it's not about music. It's about candy bars, pimple cream, cars, beer, chewing gum, teen products interspersed with a very uniform kind of rhythm track and people dancing around and wearing unusual clothes, and it's consumer manipulation.
What are the kids, how do they handle MTV? Is it still a big buzz? Is it still a unique thing, or is it sort of just another?
Around here, it's pretty much ho-hum. I mean, MTV has its major impact within the first year of it appearing in a locality. It goes on to the cable service, and people just watch it until they go blind. And then after a while, they realize it's all the same, and then it's ho-hum. So as it's added, I think that's the major impact is within the first year.
Is it affecting, live music venues and gigs and things like that, or is it, probably in a city like this, which is Music City, maybe not, but what do you think about out there in the heartland? Is it?
Well, the easiest way to promote a tour is to make a deal with MTV, and they'll promote your tour on the air, but of course they want to take a percentage of your tour. So it's a racket.
It's another business. It's a business. Yeah. So, in general terms, where do you see a future then of American television? If you have a cable system where you have 50 cables, maybe one day someone will run another conduit up the road here and you might have 150. Will that make a difference to you and your neighbours, how people live their lives, you think? Or is it just more, does more choice necessarily mean better programming?
Not in this country. I mean, more choice means more of the same. Because the minute somebody comes up with something which is successful, the natural instinct of the American is to imitate it and just clone it and beat it to death. Just as the thing I find very ironic in today's political world is that we're always talking in U.S. politics about how the Japanese never really invent anything, they just copy our stuff. Well, we just copy our stuff. We're chasing our tail here. CNN ran a statistic just a little while ago that for this quarter, the industrial growth figure for the industrial base of this country is at 50.1. It's virtually at a standstill. We're like 0.1 over no growth, just standing still. We're not even treading water. We're standing still. And I think that the timidity of the broadcasting and the absence of anything creative coming onto general broadcasting and the desire to feed bland product to an imaginary Mr. Everybody that they've calculated is out there is a sign of the times. It's people behave that way when they're scared to death. And so the only thing that I could say to people in other countries who have the opportunity to import American television shows to enliven their market, you do so at your own peril, because these shows that we watch are one of the reasons why we are the way we are. These shows help to make us the scared, ineffectual, bumbling, coarse society that we are. Now, you may want to watch these things. You might think that Dallas and MTV is something really good to have in your country, but at your own peril.